Are you ready to wake up? You are now entering Dreamland. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Now Entering Dreamland, a podcast about dreams, sleep, and everything in between. Welcome back to those of you who have been to Dreamland before. We're happy to have you back. And welcome to those of you joining us in Dreamland for the first time. We're happy to have you here. Everyone, we have made it. This is the start of season 2 of Now Entering Dreamland. I'm really glad that I've made it this far with this podcast. This whole podcast stemmed from a passion project of mine about talking about dreams and sleep. Um, really, when I think about it, it started out of a need to do something creative and talk to other human beings and not inanimate objects during quarantine times. So I'm happy to have continued with it and really happy to be starting season 2. So, with that said, I had several ideas about how I wanted to start season 2 of this podcast. And I didn't know which one would be the best idea to start with. I knew I wanted to continue interviewing people about their dreams. And I definitely wanted to continue having these interesting conversations. This is a plug for season 1 if you haven't listened already. And I definitely wanted to continue diving into sleep and dream questions that I have, like what's the deal with dream analysis? Is this even real science? Well, I want to just say this. If you are a returning listener, we are going to continue to look at all of those topics and even more this season. But we're going to start this season a little differently because for the past 2 weeks, I have had a repeating dream. And I didn't want to talk about it on this podcast because it was a little personal and also because I didn't realize it would keep happening. But this dream, I've had it 4 times now, and it's hard to explain this, but this dream is kind of making me sleepwalk. Yeah, I know it's weird, but let me explain. Just for the sake of consistency with this podcast, I'm going to call my dream The Dream of Three Rooms. Yeah, wow, interesting. That's a great title, Stacy. You're really knocking it out of the park. But I digress. The Dream of Three Rooms. So the dream starts out where I'm in this really spacious room and spacious, like the ceilings are really high, like they're like 12-foot ceilings. It's like a big space. It's kind of looks like a loft. And even though the room is spacious, it's really cramped during the dream because there are a lot of people in the room. Faces are kind of a blur, but there's just a lot of people. And it's kind of a party. Like it seems like a party to me. The mood of the dream is really lighthearted. It feels like a good time. I haven't been to a party in what I would call a party in over a year. So I'm kind of enjoying myself. It seems like this must be post COVID-19 times. Um, I'm kind of walking through the room with a little bit of a difficulty, and I'm trying to find something. So I'm opening drawers. I'm looking in and around different nooks and crannies of the room. I'm looking for something. And at one point, I leave the main party, which makes sense. How at parties sometimes people are all congested in one room, and I start walking down a hallway. And I do that because I am suddenly inspired. I know what I'm going to find. And because this is my mind at work, I don't get what I want. I open a door and I am in a new room. So this is the second room. And it is a classroom. So this really isn't only a new room, but it's a new space entirely. But I'm not fazed by this. And when I realize what's happening, I look down and I realize I'm sitting at a desk. So I go kind of from standing to sitting at a desk. And I'm sitting there like I'm a student. And on the desk in front of me is a test paper. And I start feeling like really, really panicked and flustered because I'm not prepared for whatever this test is. I'm staring at the paper and there are all these like equations and numbers on it, and I was never good at math. So even saying this right now is getting me a little upset because it was always tricky for me. But I'm looking at this paper and I'm feeling so much anxiety, and then just I feel dread. And I honestly feel like I might cry. And then while I'm sitting there looking at this test, I hear a voice behind me, and the voice says, "Don't cry. You're wrong." And then so I kind of just jump up from my desk and I walk to the classroom door and I open it. And I do that because I'm just afraid to turn around and see who's speaking to me. So I open the door. And when I open the door, I'm in a new space. Like, it's not a school. I know that it's not a school. It's a new space. So this is the third room. And I'm putting room in air quotes that you cannot see right now because this room is actually a hallway. And it's a really, really glamorous hallway. It has plush red carpet, really nice ornate fixtures, gold trim. It looks like a glamorous, old-fashioned hotel, like one of those hotels that has really nice, like oak accoutrement everywhere. And at the very end of the hallway is very long, and there are doors on lining both sides. And at the very end of the hallway, there's one door that's facing me. And this is the only door that's slightly open. And I can see that the door is open because there's a really bright light inside the room that's kind of coming out of the open door. And I'm seeing that, and I start to calm down a little bit, but then I get really scared because I realize that something or someone is behind me, and I don't want that person or thing to reach me. So I start to run towards the open door. And I really want to stress this. This isn't one of those cinematic moments where you start to walk fast and then a little bit faster and then you break into a sprint. No, I full on start running towards the open door. But I've never, in the 4 times I've had this dream, make it to the door, because every time I almost reach the door and I almost grab the door handle, I'm jerked backward. I never see the person or the thing pulling me backward. I always just wake up with a sudden jolt. And this is when this whole situation becomes weird, or honestly, frankly, weirder, because the things I'm already talking about are pretty weird. But every time I've woken up after having this dream, I'm standing upright and I'm in my kitchen in my apartment. And that means that at some point during this dream, and perhaps even the time of the dream when I'm running, I must sleepwalk out of my room where I'm in my bed, open my door, walk down my apartment hallway, and walk into my kitchen. So this is all really weird to me. I have a lot of vivid dreams. If you've listened to this podcast, you know that. And I sleepwalk a lot. That's another thing I talk about in this podcast a lot, my sleepwalking. But I typically don't do those two things at once. The only thing that I can think of that this even kind of reminds me of is when I was a kid, I remember having these dreams where I was stuck on a rotating circle, kind of like a Wheel of Fortune or one of those carnival games where they spin a circle and you try to pick a number to land on. And I'd be stuck on one of those rotating circles. And occasionally, after I had those dreams, I would wake up and I would see that I myself had rotated in my bed. So I always slept with my head near my closet door, but sometimes I would have just fully rotated in bed. So I would take my pillow at some point during the night and I would put it on the other end of the bed near to my window. So I would be in the total opposite position from where I started at the beginning of the night. But I haven't had dreams like that in years. All of that happened years ago. I think the last time I had a dream like that was when I was 9. So we're talking about 20 years of not having a dream like that. And the dream component about school is really weird too, because I haven't been in formal education or formal schooling in more than 6 years. So I'm not really sure why now I would start having a dream about test anxiety. I used to dream about that all the time because I feel like there's part of my brain that's a little bit of a perfectionist. So when I had a big test coming up, I would always get really, really scared. But again, I haven't had dreams like that in years. Does this mean anything? Are there any dream experts listening to this that want to try to analyze this for me? Because I am stumped. And I say all this to say that for the start of Now Entering Dreamland Season 2, I wanted to begin by talking about this dream. Hopefully, I can find some answers and report back by the end of the season. So, this is going to be one through line of the podcast, but we're also going to continue with new interviews, new sleep and dream topics, and new findings about dream analysis and other things that interested us from last season. As always, I'm planning to post new episodes on Sundays, so I'm definitely looking forward to continuing exploring dreams and sleep on this podcast. You're now leaving Dreamland, but we'll see you next time.